Hello everyone. Thank you for continuing with us. This section will address issues related to integrating documentation into educational practice, namely how to build a documentation culture. We will present some strategies to enhance the construction of this culture. How can documentation be used to inform parents, how they can do it, the reasons for doing so, and how can they request information in a targeted manner? Another aspect to be addressed is the educator sharing documentation with the children to promote their reflection and self-assessment in their learning process. These aspects were already explored, but now we are going deeply into each of them. We will focus on documentation as an ongoing process. Building a culture of documentation. How to using documentation to inform parents and how to share documentation with children, encouraging reflection and self-assessment. And we're going to explore practical strategies to build a culture of documentation, i.e., how can you create the daily practice of documenting and a sense of this culture in your kindergarten. Educational practice documentation involves previously mentioned processes: observing, recording, documenting, planning, and evaluating. These stages are interconnected and develop sequentially and cyclically. It is thus a continuous process that is not restricted to a single moment, but should be ingrained in educational practice. Many educators often consider the documentation process time-consuming, consuming much of their time in educational practice. There are a set of strategies that educators can use to make this process simpler and faster. Think simplicity. Maintaining simplicity can help reduce the time spent on documentation. A photograph with a short note can be quite effective and informative. To do this, select a picture that reveals the child's learning process and accompany it with a direct and revealing comment. Children can help decide which photograph and caption to use. Create a document template. Thinking of a previous template with titles avoids having to write the same titles several times and having to format a document for each record. For instance, a template for a child's daily learning journal or a template for a weekly progress report. Having a pre-prepared document where you can jot down simple ideas as they occur, whether in the form of a diagram, table, or other, can save time spent on this process. This does not preclude reflecting on and discussing this record later to support children's interests. You can also add some photographs to complement what happened. Use sticky notes. Writing observation records, such as children's speech and actions during a specific experience, can be a way to save time and avoid rewriting the records later to add them to individual portfolios, planning, photographs, drawings, diagrams, or other documents that present the record of the experience. This is because you can stick the notes to these documents as you collect the records. Involve the children as much as possible. Documenting with the children during educational time rather than after that period not only brings the advantage of involving the children, but also prevents the educator from carrying the work of documenting and reflecting into post-work hours. Asking the children if they want to say something about the work they have done, drawing, 3D construction, playing, or other, makes documentation a participatory process and provides the educator with a narrative justification by the child of their action process. This collaboration of children can also enter into the storage and organization of documentation, for example, allowing the child to store their documentation in their portfolios. Find a system that works for you. Processes that may work for others may not be the same as those that work for you. Therefore, you should be aware of how best to organize your work to save time and energy. Establish communication with parents. Informing parents of where the documentation is located and encouraging them to consult and revisit it frequently can also be a time management strategy. This saves the educator from constantly justifying their actions as they are proven in each child's portfolio. Allowing parents to intervene in the portfolio so they can make comments, add information, photographs, or other records can also bring immense advantages. Documenting together is always less laborious and leads to a higher level of reflection. Remember that when sharing portfolios, ethical issues should be considered, such as including only general information about the children, securely storing confidential information, and ensuring that the information posted respects the identity and culture of the child and their family. A good strategy for educators is at the beginning of the year to make clear to parents the type of documentation they use and the role parents can play in building that documentation. Clearly stating the advantages of documentation and family participation can be a strategy for greater involvement of families in the educational process. Documenting for parents is a way to communicate, restore, and create a bridge between the child's moments in the educational context and the access parents have to their children's experiences. It is essential for the educator to create moments with parents to promote sharing information about the child's daily life, not only for informational purposes, but also for joint reflection for the child's sake. This sharing of documentation can be done in various forms: displaying photographs, materials, narratives, learning records, and writing attempts, among others. The different documents cannot be a mere collection. They must be organized to make the child's progress and achievements visible. It makes evident what and how children learn in the educational environment. It can also be a strategy for parents to value and understand the work of educators. The educator can also collect data about the children's life context and their interactions with families and the community. This occurs through records that show the participation of parents, families in meetings or activities in the classroom, as well as relationships with community partners. The perspectives of these participants also constitute pertinent information, which can be obtained through notes from informal conversations or using more systematic and structured instruments, such as interviews or questionnaires. As mentioned in the previous point, there are immense advantages to sharing documentation with parents, both for them to consult and to collaborate in reflecting on the records. Allowing parents also to share documentation with educators about the child creates greater involvement of families and leads the educator to build a complete view of the child with experiences inside and outside the educational context. Some information that the educator can collect or request contributions from parents includes family. Elements such as address, name, number of siblings, mother tongue are information that parents can easily provide. Medical history. Some information such as illnesses, allergies, concerns are important for the educator to have access to and therefore should be requested from parents. Information about children's learning. The educator must not forget that the child's first learning and early development occurred within the family. Therefore, collaboration from families should be sought for sharing information about these processes, such as the age at which children sat, their first words, their first steps, among others. Information about children's likes and personality. Knowing what the child likes, dislikes, their strengths, their challenges, and their comfort items, affectionate names given by the family, comfort objects, is important for the educator, as it allows them to plan a practice more adapted to the child. Collaboration can be requested from parents. Information about social processes. The educator must collect from parents the models of interaction and social relationship of the child, as well as previous experiences in environments inside and outside the home. Any other information about the child, the educator needs to remember that there is likely no one who knows the child better than the parents, so any information considered relevant to collect about the child should be requested from them. Supplementing the information provided to parents with tips and suggestions on how they can support and enhance the child's learning at home can be a resource used by the educator. Allowing parents to share and provide feedback on this information and following up with feedback can lead to family involvement. The child should be involved in the documentation and assessment process. The educator should communicate with the children to understand their development and learning. They should also allow children to think about what they did, what they said, how they did it, and what they learned, helping them plan what they will do next. It is important to note that children's communication is not solely through speech. Children use many nonverbal means to communicate, so the documentation and reflection process on their learning and these means should also be considered. Sharing documentation with children is a valuable pedagogical practice that aims to inform and promote reflection and joint self-assessment. By involving children in the documentation process of their learning journey, educators offer meaningful opportunities to develop metacognition and critical awareness. This allows children to feel integral to the process, helping them reflect on their experiences and deepen, interpret, and understand their learning and development process. This engaging sharing can take various forms, from guided discussions to interactive activities that invite children to explore and understand visual representations of their educational experiences. Some benefits of this practice include fostering reflection. Whether through guided discussions, individual diaries, or portfolios, this strategy encourages children to express thoughts, feelings, and discoveries, and offers children a personal space to reflect on their experiences and achievements. Stimulating self-assessment. provides children with opportunities to assess their progress, identifying areas of interest, challenges overcome, and goals achieved. It encourages them to share their perceptions and self-assessments, developing their critical thinking skills. Promoting autonomy. Allowing children to choose which works they want to highlight on the boards can promote autonomy and responsibility. Also, providing opportunities for children to share their accomplishments with their peers can promote confidence and the ability to express themselves. Building a learning culture. Allows celebrating the diverse forms of learning, recognizing that each child has a unique journey, and providing constructive feedback that encourages growth and ongoing exploration. Educators incorporate documentation sharing into the educational environment to encourage a learning culture that recognizes and respects children's voices and perspectives. This practice strengthens the bond between educators and children and respects their rights, calling children to be active agents in their own educational process. Remember that children tend to see adults as references, so for the child to have communication and reflection skills, they need an adult with these same abilities. It is essential for the educator to communicate, listen, and interpret as well. Go to Section 3 of Module 4. Thank you for participating.